Hello, everybody. This episode of the Young and Pruitt podcast is brought to you by Carpy's Custom Screen Printing. Whether you need t-shirts for your race team or your kids' t-ball team, they can create it. If you have the artwork, if you want them to do the artwork, they got you covered. They can do all custom decals, RC car wraps. These guys are really big in the RC car stuff. They do all original artwork, and everything's made right here in the United States. They're out of Olean, New York. Be sure to give them a call, 716-378-5158, at Carpy's on all their social media, www.carpys.com. Be sure to mention the Young and Pruitt podcast at some point to let them know where you guys heard about them. That's Carpy's Custom Screen Printing. This episode is also brought to you by youngandpruitt.com. Every single one of the previous episodes are on there. Layla's blog's on there. We have the fan forum. Be sure to sign up, join the discussion, talk about anything you want. Just be nice. We got some merchandise that we're working on currently with our partner, Carpy's Custom Screen Printing. Those will be available sometime here soon. I'll be sure to let everybody know. I'll tweet it, Instagram it, at Young and Pruitt. As I mentioned, all the previous episodes are on there. You can hear us on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, in an audio form, depending on which is easier for you guys. We have it set up 4 different ways. On this episode of the Young and Pruitt podcast, we have a very special guest, Marlin Yoder. Marlin grew up Amish. So the story that this kid has, from being in an Amish community to being down here and racing for 4 years now and being a champion car chief last year in the K&N series, it's an extraordinary story. It's really cool, really fun. He's a super nice guy, super humble, but hope you guys enjoy. And be sure to turn up your radio knob because we have a theme song. Boom. All right. Thank you, Marlin, for coming on.
Me.
This is going to be a fun one. Let's see. You're from Amish country, right?
Yeah, I was actually born and raised Amish. I was born in Missouri originally, and then when I was 9 years old, my parents moved to Wisconsin.
Yeah.
So I was pretty much raised there.
So that explains where you got your taste of racing, being up in Wisconsin.
Yeah, that's a long story. To be honest, I was about 15 years old. Of course, being Amish, can't have a radio. That's against the rules. Mm-hmm. But I got a little pocket handheld radio, FM radio, from a buddy of mine that had left the Amish about, I don't know, a year before that or something. But anyways, so I would get this one country station in that I would listen to, and I come across hearing the NASCAR race on that station one Sunday. And of course, you being Amish, you can't follow sports. Sports are not allowed. You're only allowed to play certain sports like volleyball, but you can't play basketball, football, hockey. Like, it's just their strange set of rules that you gotta go by, you know. But so anyways, I didn't know anything about racing growing up Amish. So I started listening to NASCAR races, and it was something about listening to them guys. Listen to how they explain how the race was happening, how, playing it out and everything. Just had, it was amazing, just listen to that, because you had never experienced anything like it, So moving forward, I was like 15 then. A couple of my radios got found, or I didn't hide them good enough. My dad would find them, and
so like, where Are you like up in the hayloft, out in the woods? Like, where are you listening to this stuff at?
Yeah, a lot of times I'd on Sunday afternoons we get home from church at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
So I would usually hide my my radio in my room somewhere or out in the barn somewhere. So I would tell my parents I'm going to go for a walk, or I'm going to go out to the back 40, check on the cattle. We had a whole bunch of beef cattle and stuff. I'm going to go for a walk and just, check the cattle. So I would go out back and, spend all afternoon and evening as long as I dared before, they would start asking questions on what I'm doing. So I would do that, or I'd go horseback riding and just listen to the race. And of course, at that point, I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know what a race car looked like. I didn't know, any of that, besides maybe pictures that I would see when you got lucky enough to go to the store or something like that. But in general, I had this, a very slight idea of race cars, racing, or any racing sport in general. So moving forward from that point, I got to be about 17 and a half, and my buddy that had left the Amish before that, he helped me leave. Like I made up my decision. I had, didn't want to live that way. I wanted to live a different life. I wanted to drive a truck. I wanted to have electricity. And at that point, the racing was cool, but that was like something else. Like I just wanted a whole different life to begin with. Mm-hmm. So the day I left, I got to see my first race, and I was mind-blown on the whole thing. Like, the first pit stops, they were changing tires, and I asked my buddy, I says, why are they putting old tires back on? Like, them tires are wore out. There's no tread on them. Like, I had no idea, So it's just little things like that I think back to now, that from where it all started way back then, for what I knew, I had no idea a race tire was a slick, Mm-hmm. So that first race, that had me. Like, that was where it all began, for sure. And we would, of course, me and my buddies, we would watch all kinds of racing on TV. We would watch NASCAR, dirt stuff, whatever, stuff that comes on MAV TV or whatever. And it just became a really big race fan in general. And then we would start, me and my buddies, a couple more kids left the Amish, a couple buddies of mine. So we had, in the end there, we had probably, I don't know, I guess there was 6 of us. And we'd go to the local track and watch Saturday night races, and we would never miss a race. Like, we just go watch the races. And so finally, one day, we were sitting there watching the races, and we were like, you know what? Like, them street stocks can't be that hard to work on. We were like, I think we figured we can do this. So we started talking to people, kind of got to know some people. And like at that point, we still didn't really know that much about race cars. Like I still remember the very first time we went to the racetrack. At that point, I wasn't 18 yet. I left the Amish just a little bit before I was 18 there. But we didn't know how to work on a race car. Like, if it was loose, like, we didn't know how to tighten it up. Mm-hmm. Like, we had no idea. We had no clue what to do.
Who was driving it? You?
No, my buddy that had left the Amish before me, he was about 2 years older than me, I guess. So he was the one driving. I couldn't drive yet because I wasn't 18, and of course my parents weren't going to sign for that, So So I'd help work on it, wrench on it. But I mean, we didn't know what we were doing. We were lucky if nothing fell off, So we would ask a couple different people, well, what do you think I should do? Our driver would say, okay, well, it's free here and free here, but it's good here, So we would ask. We made the mistake of not asking the same person every time, and we'd ask multiple people. So everybody always gave us completely different answers. So we were pretty much out in left field for a long time, and but that's where it started. A couple of years after that, I got my own street stock. In the north, they're called Sportsmen, but it's basically what the street stocks are here in the south, with just a few different rules. But so in that meantime, before I got my street stock, I would work on our street stock as much as I can. I'd be up until midnight, 2-3 o'clock in the morning, weekdays, just trying to learn the race car and figuring out, okay, if I move this, what does it do over here? What does it make the race car do? And so
you're fine. You can take off your
jacket. It went for a couple of years like that, and in the meantime, I got to know some people at the racetrack. So I would help people work on their super late models or their late models. And of course, at that point, I still didn't know a whole lot about it or know what was the right way to do stuff. Because I mean, I didn't even know how to work on cars. Like, we didn't know anything about cars in general. Obviously, we had horses back in the Amish, So I'd every chance I had, whether we were racing or not. Even after I got my own street stock, I'd go help 3 different buddies I had at the same time, where I would go if they needed a hand one night, whether it was cleaning the race car or setting up the race car or loading the race car or wrenching on it, whatever it was. I wanted to be around it. I just wanted to be around race cars and race car things. So at some point it got to the point where I was working on race cars every night of the week and going to the racetrack, whether it was with my own car or helping buddies with their cars. So finally, my mind started rolling, and I thought about what the possibility would be that I could move to North Carolina, but I didn't know anybody. So I didn't know how hard was it going to be to go to North Carolina from Wisconsin. Don't know any, at that point I knew about the sport. Obviously, I watched it all the time, but I didn't really know what it took behind the scenes. But that's what struck my curiosity from day one, I guess, with race cars or cars in general.
Now that kind of seems like an easier choice than leaving the Amish community, though.
It was, to an extent, it was, because leaving the Amish, obviously, I mean, maybe not obviously, but it was hard because, I couldn't talk to my family. When they do talk to me, and it's better now. We've got a better relationship now. And in March, it'll be 10 years since I've left the Amish. But the first 3-4 years, if I talked to my parents, all we would do is argue. And a lot of times it was because they beg me to come back. You're living wrong. You shouldn't. You're doing wrong. You're not living the way you were brought up to live. Basically living against their rules, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But, and I told them from day one, I'll never go back. Like, that's not the life I want to live.
So, like, what's the process to leave the Amish? Like, is there like an official, like, separation, or is it just, hey, this isn't working for me, I'm out of here?
A lot of times it's not working. Like, this is not the way I want to live. And different people at that point, kids, leave different ways. Some leave and won't tell their parents. Like, they'll just leave.
Just like run away, basically.
Yeah, run away. But what it boils down to. And they'll just leave a note. Like, I'm out of here. I'm done.
Love you, bye.
Yeah. And so for me, I knew it was going to be hard, and I was the oldest of 6. So Mom always, she always, I don't know, it's hard to explain. Mom and Dad are like 2 completely different people. Dad was always a hard ass. Like, he never got away with anything.
Same.
And he was, he was the one, but he was the one that taught me to work. Like, we'd get up at 5 every morning, and we always had cows to feed, cows to milk by hand, 20 of them horses to feed.
Was that your main income, the cows?
No, we always had like 20 to 60 beef cattle, and that was some income. But my dad had, and still has a sawmill.
Really?
And builds pallets. So like, he buys the logs, and he'll cut the logs down to lumber, and he'll turn around and build them into pallets. And he's got contracts with different food companies, different shipping companies.
Wow.
And like, he sells pallets to these people, and they take it to their plant or whatever it is and put their stuff on it and ship it across, the U.S. or the world. So he's got a really good thing going for that. So like, when I would get up in the morning, do my chores, that would usually take about an hour and a half. And it didn't matter if it was 10 below and dark outside. Like, it had to get done in the same amount of time. And everything. Of course, we didn't have tractors. We didn't have skid loaders. We didn't have truck and trailers. Like, if we needed to give the 60 beef cattle a bale of hay, a big round bale of hay, you couldn't just fire up the tractor and go give them a bale of hay.
You had to go get the horse.
You had to get you had to get the horses in, feed the horses, then harness the horses, take the horses out, hook them up to our wagon thing that that my dad built a long time ago with a winch on it and a thing, a spear to spear the bale and everything, and you would take that out, feed the cattle. Like, and
wow.
So like, everything that you do like that, it just, whether, in the summer when it's field work, when you're planting corn, you don't have a tractor. Like, you have 2 horses, a team of horses in a horse-drawn 2-row planter. And that's all you have. I mean, it takes a long time to plant an acre of corn, 1 acre.
Yeah.
And
let alone
then
like 40, 60, 100.
Right.
Yeah. So, and then, like, talking about that corn, then when it's time to harvest the corn, you don't have a combine to go harvest the corn. You get out there with a wagon and a team of horses and the whole family, and you pick the corn by hand. And a lot of times...
So not even like a lot of like the horse-drawn equipment, like a like a horse-drawn harvester or anything like that? You guys never used
No,
anything
you
like
couldn't have a harvester. That was against the rules. You had to pick the corn by hand.
How is he cutting the wood into pallets?
Yeah, I was going to ask, how do you run a business and have multiple contracts?
It seems
and fit and make those large orders.
So
Like, fill all that without are you allowed to use banks? Is there electricity in business that's allowed, or
no electricity allowed.
wow? So this is the all manual, like straight.
Like the sawmill, my dad has the everything that runs the sawmill. He actually has two 100 horsepower turbo diesels set up in different locations in the building. He's got two of them in there. So then everything, all his equipment is run off of belts, chains, drive shaft. Like there's two long drive shafts that go the entire length of that building, and it's probably a 60 by 80 building.
Wow.
Yeah, if you look up in your local brewery that just opened up here recently, a lot of those old buildings that are becoming like breweries and like little restaurants and stuff,
Which I love.
When you see those big metal rods with those big wheels hanging off the rafters, that's what he's talking about. That's what runs all the machinery. And it's big, like a almost, well, not a nylon belt, but like a big belt.
Mm-hmm.
So is that ran off like biodiesel, like corn-based diesel, or
No, that's just regular off-road diesel.
cool?
So how is that allowed and other things aren't allowed?
That's what it comes down to me leaving the Amish. That's what it all boils down to.
Got it.
That is what everything, like I get asked so many questions, like we're here talking about it, and you can ask me 100 questions, and 9 times out of 10 I'm going to tell you it's the way their rules are. That's the way their rules state. And most times they don't waver by them. So when I was a curious kid. I was always thinking outside the box. I was always different from everyone. So I was always one asking, why can we...
Like questioning the process?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why can't we play volleyball but not basketball? It's basically the same size ball, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like but then their response would be, that is the way our rules are.
Huh.
And
So what would you say is the piece of the outside world that finally said, this is more where I belong versus like the Amish? Was there like a defining moment, or is it something you experienced or saw? Like,
because it seems to me like they kind of knew that it was coming. It's kind of like one of those, like when you get into like a bad breakup or whatever, like everyone like sees it heading that way, and then till the first person to finally say like, "Hey, I'm done," and you're like, "Yeah, I figured so." Like I could see like, how you were saying each one had their own different way of doing it. I see like you kind of like it kind of got into like some arguments
this
or
doesn't
like
make sense.
yeah, like some tension, and then eventually like they kind of seen it was coming.
yeah, I was always the rebel child. I was always the one getting in trouble, doing stuff that I wasn't, supposed to, or being the one that would ask questions, like we were talking about. And I think they might have kind of seen it coming, but they didn't dare think it, But so going back to the sawmill.
Well, what was the one thing you think it was?
Oh yeah, the one thing that probably put a staple in it was I snuck out of the house one night, and my buddy picked me up that had left the Amish before I did there, and he let me drive his, I don't know, I guess it was like a 96 or 97 half-ton Dodge truck. He let me drive that, and that's probably when I said, this is gonna be it. This is me.
And you can definitely tell by the one that's parked out.
I was going to say
out in the driveway that's taking up the driveway.
That is stuck with you over the years.
Yeah, that was one thing with being in the sawmill there. We would have a lot of trucks pulling logs, bringing logs in, or trucks would come there with gooseneck trailers, taking pallets out or whatever it may be. So I got to see a lot of trucks, and that was always something that from I was probably 15. I kind of 15 to 16. I had made up my mind already then. I was gonna have a black mega cab, 3/4 ton Cummins Dodge Ram, and
that's exactly what is setting out in the driveway.
That's exactly what's sitting out there. I was finally able to purchase that about a year and a half ago, I guess it was, and of course the bank still owes a good bit of it, but
hey,
I think
they own pretty much all of us, one way or another.
But at the end of the day, that's when that thing fires up. It's just like, because I heard it, I was like, what's all that commotion out there? Got to looking out the window, I was like, oh wow.
Yeah, it was a long time coming for that, for sure.
Well, you got to make it yours once you finally get it right.
Yeah. It's definitely was one of them steps. Like leaving the Amish obviously was a big decision, and then making that decision to finally be able to purchase this truck was another big thing. And it's I don't know, it's just awesome, you know.
So when you started to move down here to North Carolina, did you group together with those buddies that you were all racing with, or did you just come down here singly?
I came down here by myself. In fact, a buddy of mine and a cousin of mine actually rode with me, came down, and they just basically wanted to take a little vacation. So they rode down with me, and it was, when was it? The first 2 weeks of 2015. I took off of work. Of course, I was a roofer in Wisconsin, so roofing in the winter is pretty slow up there.
There's not good weather for roofing at all.
Yeah, hot in the summer, cold in the winter.
It's never a good time to put a roof on.
So I took the first 2 weeks in 2015 and came down, and leading up to that decision that was also like man, like I don't know anybody. Is it worth my time? But at the same time, like I had made up my mind at that point. I work on race cars pretty much every day right now, except I have a day job. Then I come home and I either work on my own race car or I go help a buddy work on his, just to get the joy of going to the racetrack on the weekend. You know, that's what I lived for, was going to the racetrack on a weekend. And it's still that same way now. And so that made the decision easier to come down to look for a job.
Mm-hmm.
So us three, me and my cousin and a buddy of ours, came down, and I went from shop to shop. Just every shop I could think of on Google, trying to find shops, you know, race teams, whether it was anything from a modified super late model team or a cup team. You know, I stopped at every single race shop I could think of. And when you start going through the list, there is a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the first week I didn't have any luck. I didn't have any luck. So, but I mean, I would stop at 7 or 8 race shops every day. You know, depending on the location. Obviously, some days it was 4, some days it was 8. So I'd stop. Of course, I had some resume printed up, but it wasn't much. I mean, I was a roofer at that point, the past 7 years since I left the Amish, you know, and helped my buddies work on their super late model at the local racetrack. So that's not much of a resume.
Yeah, but you're checking off the top one on work ethic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I knew my chances were going to be very slim, because I knew at that point, I knew enough about the industry that I knew it was going to be hard to get hired somewhere for somebody that wants to take the time to teach you.
Yeah.
You know, that is the biggest problem, is the time to teach somebody, and if it's worth their time to teach you. So the first week, no luck. And I didn't know, you know, was it a waste of time or, you know, but I wasn't about to give up. You know, I was down here. I was going to pound on every single race shop until there was no more race shops, you know. I was going to pound every door down. And some places I would stop. I'd get lucky enough I'd talk to somebody, whether it was a crew chief or somebody at the front desk, or, you know, at the smaller race shops, a mechanic. I would hand him my resume and ask if a manager was around or somebody that's in charge of hiring and firing, you know, if I could talk to somebody. And then some places they didn't even want to talk, you know. They grabbed my resume and you know, I was out the door.
File 13.
So it was not an easy task for sure, but the first week there, the first 5 days, no luck. Second week, Monday come around, still no luck. I drove everywhere. And
Now, what time of year is this?
this was the second week, going on the second week in January.
Ooh.
Oh, wow.
So
So this
it's-
is like the meat and the...
Yeah, that's not a bad time.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I figured. Like, I mean, I didn't know. I didn't know anybody in the sport. I didn't, you know, so, but I figured, well, it's before Daytona, after Homestead, you know, it's in that period where if I was going to find something.
At least they're there.
Yeah.
This is like the weird part of time.
Yeah.
Where Black Monday from Thanksgiving week is out of everybody's head, and this is where everybody's realizing, oh shit, I don't have enough people.
Yeah, and it's a new year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Monday rolls around on the second week in January, and no luck. Tuesday, I stopped at a couple of places, no luck, and it was probably the third or fourth place I stopped. It was still before lunch. I walked into this place, and it was a super late model team, and they ran a partial truck schedule. So I walk in, and it looked like from the outside, when I walked up, I thought it looked like it was a pretty big place, but I didn't know. So I walk in, and there is 2 employees, and I'm like, well, I don't know, you know, but we'll see. And I walk over to them, and they were working on a setup plate, and one dude turns around, he comes over to me, and at that point, I had no idea who it was, and it was Bobby Gill. And, of course, you know, a lot of super late model or short track racers know that name from a while ago, you know. But I didn't know who it was. You know, that was, at that point, long time, you know, way before my time.
Yeah.
Because obviously I didn't know about racing or, you know, I didn't know the history of short track racing or anything like that. And a lot of people know Bobby as a kind of a not really short-tempered, but he doesn't really have the time of day for you unless unless he knows you. And at that point, only so many people he gets along with anyways. So he was short with me, asked me what I wanted basically, and I told him, here to drop off a resume, I'm looking for a job. And he says, okay. He says, we'll get it to the boss upstairs. And I'm like, I thanked him, and I turn around, I walk out the door, and I'm like, that probably was probably not going to go anywhere. Just because of, kind of the attitude he gave me, like he wasn't being an asshole, but he wasn't
being friendly either.
Yeah. So I figured, well, that resume probably went right in the trash can, probably never made it to the boss. But I didn't know, I trying to keep my head up. So I sat in the parking lot for probably 5 minutes and going through my list of race shops in that area and just trying to find more places to stop. So I sat there for like 5 minutes and then I leave, and I didn't get 2 blocks up the road. My phone rings, and it's a Charlotte number, and I answer. And it was this place I just stopped at. And it was Waters Motorsports. So Richie Waters calls me. And
That was my first gig too.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So he calls me and he says, "Hey, you were just here?" I said, "Yep." He says, "Come on back. I wanna chat." So I went back and sat down and talked to him for, it seemed like an hour, but it was like 20 minutes, 25 minutes maybe. And he asked me a bunch of questions, and of course I didn't know, so I was just honest with him. I told him exactly what I was trying to accomplish, what I wanted to do, what I have been doing, and he, in the end, we made a deal, and he said, "You're hired. When can you start?" And at that point, I was like, about the whatever time I need to go back to Wisconsin, drop my buddies off, and get a few more things in my car and get back here. So I said, and this was on that Tuesday forenoon. I said, I can start next Monday, and I did. I went back to the hotel we were staying at, and we threw our suitcases in the car and went back to Wisconsin. I grabbed whatever I could fit in my car, which was some clothes and TV, and that was about it. I mean, at that point, I didn't have my truck yet. I had some Grand Prix car that I had. So anyways, I came down, and at that point, I was scared shitless because through this whole entire time, through 2014 winter and leading up to 2015, when I kind of made up my mind to come down here to see if I can find a job, I started talking to a buddy of mine. Well, he's a buddy now, but at that point, I didn't know the guy, but I was friends with him on Facebook only because I raced against him at the local racetrack there, Wisconsin Dells. I raced against him, but never got to meet him, but somehow I had gotten to be friends with him on Facebook. So I had seen that he was at the Snowball Derby, and that he had started working for some team here in the Charlotte area. So I messaged him, and I told him, I said, "Hey," I told him what I was thinking of doing, like thinking of coming down here to look for a job. And so he was the only guy that I even knew what looked like. I didn't know anybody down here. So in that first week that I was down here, I met up with him, had a beer, and met him. And then so when I met him and got to know him and everything, he's like, "Well, if you get lucky enough to to get a job," he says, "I got a spare bedroom you can stay if you get a job." So when I was driving home, I called him. I told him, I said, "Hey, I got a job and I start next Monday." And of course, we were pretty much complete strangers still at that point. But went home, grabbed my shit, came down, started work, and here I am. I mean, I worked for Richie for a year, all of 2015 there. I worked for him. And then I got hired over here at MDM to car chief for Marty Lindley, and I've been there since. And
so you went from roofing 4 years later to being a championship winning K&N car chief.
Yeah.
In less than 4 years.
It's
like everything you just described is like the best part of this sport. You
Yeah.
know, like
Yeah.
oh yeah, come crashing the house. Come on down. If you get lucky, call me.
Yeah, that's kind of what That's kind of what happened. Like I was gonna have to stay at a hotel or something because I didn't have time to
Do anything.
look for a house,
Apartment, none of that.
I didn't have time for anything, and to be honest, like at that point, the money I was making the first like 4 or 5 months at Richie's, like I can't blame him. Like he wasn't paying me very much because he didn't know who I was or if I was going to be worth anything, and so I didn't know if I was going to be fired and be going back to Wisconsin in the first week or first 6 months. Like I didn't know, but I worked my ass off, and he kept giving me raises as the summer went, and then I got hired at MDM. And ran the first year with Kyle Benjamin and finished second in the points that year in K&N East. And then this past year with Harrison Burton, won the championship and 5 races.
Your finishing average is killing it.
So,
but the entire MDM organization, we've talked about it before. Your guys' stats over there,
Astronomical.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah, they're unbelievable. I mean, this last year here in 2017, the car that I car chiefed, or the team deal, we ran the East schedule, obviously, with Harrison Burton. We won 5 races in the championship, and then we ran ARCA races as well. I believe we ran 8 ARCA races, and out of them 8 starts, we won 4 races, and the other races we were in contention to win. Mm-hmm. And all them 4 races came with multiple drivers. Like we won every ARCA race we won this year was with a different driver. And that's not easy to do.
No,
like it's not easy to unload every time and be in contention. And we didn't. There's some times when there's multiple times when we unloaded and we weren't very good. We were just missed it at the shop, So then it's time to go to work, but that's what I really, really enjoy about this sport is the team effort it takes to accomplish a goal, which most everybody's goal is to win races and championships. But like one of the best feelings I get is when you unload and you're really good. Obviously feels really good, but when you unload and you're not as good and you got to go to work on a car and the whole team pulls together and you go from being 10th on the board to top 3 on the board or to the top of the board, like that feeling is awesome. So badass.
Which it's kind of combining the two things, like the sense of teamwork and the sense of community that you grew up with. In the Amish community, it's all hands on deck. Mm-hmm. Like everyone's pulling their own weight, and then now you're combining that with something that you're extremely passionate about. I mean, no wonder you've gone from just getting in the door to being a champion. That just goes to show that when you have that type of work ethic, that anything's possible, really.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't easy. By no means was any part of leaving the Amish or moving here or winning the championship. None of that was easy, but with a team effort, with everybody working together, the whole organization working together, I'm just blessed to be in that situation.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just happy to be in a situation where we're capable of winning races, winning championships, and you know, just being successful in general, whether it's just, you know, whether it's racing or life. You know, no matter what it is, it's just, I mean, and now, like, I look back now, like when I moved down here in that third week of January in 2015, I had enough money saved up to last me like 4 months with the money that I was getting paid. And I was able to work hard enough to be able to get a raise by the end of that first 4 months that, you know, because I was broke. I mean, I was going to have to back up and go home if I wasn't making enough money to pay for an apartment, to make my car payment, because at that point I didn't have the Grand Prix paid off either. You know? So I had payments to make, and I left everything. You know? I had a fully furnished house that I rented in Wisconsin. I had it fully furnished, and I left everything. Like, I couldn't afford to rent a U-Haul to bring it down here. Like, I could have, but then if I wasn't successful, if I couldn't get a raise, you know, within a certain amount of time, I was going to be broke. So then what was I going to do? Like, you don't know anybody in the state of North Carolina besides the 3 people I work with, you know? So there's no plan B besides loading up and going back to Wisconsin. So to go from that to now, I am, you know, I've been successful on the racing side of things, and successful as far as my, you know, accomplishments outside of racing. I'm going to look at a house on Sunday, actually, because I'm looking to buy a house.
Nice.
Congratulations. I just went through that process. It's a fun one.
Yeah,
it's like a serious, like, I feel like
I hated it.
Well, for me,
but I could see why it could be a good one, but I despised every bit of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, similar to what he's saying, it's all part of that career and adult development, right?
Yeah.
So as soon as I finished up graduate school, I was in December and was no longer tied to being in Charlotte all the time. I had, like, my options opened up. You know, I can go live closer where my family is, where my friends are. So, like, that part was fun because it's like all the other minuscule stuff with, like, the paperwork and viewing the 9 or 10, 20 different houses. That all kind of pales in comparison to, like, what you get out of it. Like, when you're dropping the down payment and the inspections and all that other stuff, it's just like, oh, thank God I'm able to do this, because there's it's like a great problem to have, right? Like, it really is like a first world problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely was not easy to be in this position. Like, it could have just as well been, I could have, you know, and every time I think about, you know, where I am now, or what could have been, or, you know, what, you know, like, I could have, like I just said, I could have just as easily had to pack my stuff up and go home, because either I didn't get along with the 3 people I worked with, which was the owner included, you know, so what was I going to do? Get fired from my first job in the first couple months and try to find another job? And I didn't know anybody, you know? Like I had to succeed. And that's what I live by. Like, no matter what I do, I have to succeed. Like, when I left the Amish, I had to succeed. When I got my first job, that, you know, right after I left the Amish, if I got fired, or if something didn't work out, Like I had no backup.
Was that the roofing job?
Yeah.
Okay. So you were able to do that like long term.
Yeah. So if I wasn't able to do that, or to keep that job, I was, or whatever it may be, I was gonna have to go back to the Amish. I was not gonna do that, right? So I set my head like this. I can't, like, I will not allow myself to fail. Yeah, through life, bad luck, you have bad luck, something happens, you can't, that stuff happens to, every day, but to, the destiny that I could control, I tried my best. Like, I couldn't fail at that, so, okay, so now the next step, at some point when I moved to North Carolina, like, I couldn't fail. Like I was not going to pack my stuff up and go to Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. Like, that was just not going to happen, So I had to get after it. I had to make it happen. And I look at that every day I go to work. Like, this is what I got to get done today. And there's just no two ways around it. Like, if it's going to take me till midnight, that's fine. Like, this is what we got to get done. This is the way it's going to be. And like, I just live by that rule of, if you want to be successful, you have to work your ass off, and hopefully good luck comes your way as well. Because obviously, no matter, you see it in racing all the time, no matter how good you are, you can be the fastest car on the racetrack, and bad luck strikes, and it's over, But you have to, in order for good luck, or whatever you want to call it, in order for that to happen, you first have to be in the position to take advantage of it.
Absolutely.
So
yeah, there's that old football saying, the harder I work, the luckier I get.
A lot of truth in that statement.
Yes.
When that opportunity shows up, you got to be able to play ball.
Yeah, you got to be there.
That's what I tell a lot of the. So I get a lot of like kids on LinkedIn saying, how do you get into racing? And I'm like, well, that's a very broad term. What do you mean by that? Like, oh, I want to be a PR rep. Oh, I want to work in marketing. And I'm like, okay, well, what do you know about sports marketing? And it's normally like, oh, I just think it'll be fun. And I'm like, well, if you're looking for a fun job, this isn't really it. Like, anything can be fun if you enjoy doing whatever the processes are, but this is not a normal person's job, right? Like, you got to be here to go after it and be number one, because very quickly you're going to find out how competitive this is. And it's very competitive on the mechanic side of things. It's very competitive on the PR, communications, and marketing end. Like, everybody who's successful in this job, it's about achieving goals. What can you bring to the team? What value are you to somebody else? And if you're not out there figuring out how you are better than everybody else, or putting in work, or have other people who can vouch for you that you are, the guy or the girl to go to, then you're kind of finding an uphill battle. And it's just, if you're not prepared to fail, you're never going to make it. But, that's option B. And a lot of people don't, like you said, there's no option to fail. It's I'm going to get it done.
Yeah, there is no backup parachute. This is the one we got. So you better pack that one.
No, right. And it's hard to climb through the ranks, right? Because you're competing with other super competitive people. So that's
like all the stories, like my story's even similar to you. Like, I moved down here, I didn't know anybody. I had a Jeep Grand Cherokee that I couldn't fit this computer mouse in. I had everything stuffed down here. And I've told the Murphy bed story. When I came down, I was at the apartments by Lancaster's Barbecue, and it was a whole furnished thing, just like what you had, because I didn't have anything. I was moving away, didn't know anybody. Walked in, set my bags down, kind of walked around, and the place wasn't, this big. It was in the living room, seen the kitchen, seen the bathroom, and I'm looking around like, where's the bedroom? And I look over and I see this big flat wall with a rope sticking out of it. It was a Murphy bed. It's the first time I'd ever seen one. And on top of that, I didn't fit in it. I had to lay diagonal across it. Because if not, it had that big wooden frame. My heels would rest right on that wooden frame if I stretched out completely. So I had to lay at an angle to get the length to be able to sleep on the bed.
If you're not willing to be broke as fuck and work shitty hours for like a long time and put your time in, then like, if as somebody who could hire somebody, I would not hire you. Like, if you haven't paid your dues, man, like, get the fuck out of here. Mm-hmm. Like, I get it, if you're a salesperson and you can make all the sales goals and stuff, like, I need to know when times get bad that you're not going to bail and run. And I think a lot of that comes, just from growing up in general, like every college kid. If you don't know what it's like to be broke as fuck and not have anything other than a couple friends and enough to eat some chicken nuggets with, then I don't think you belong here. Mm-mm.
And it just shows that the ones that succeed are the ones that have that.
They're never going to go back to that.
Yeah.
Which, you're the living definition. I'm going to make every kid who reaches out to me listen to this one. I'm like, this guy gave up his entire life.
A world without even cars.
Away.
Yeah, a world away. Without cars, without electricity.
And now flaunts the championship ring.
Now, you're one of 3 guys, right? So there's you, Ruben, and Furman?
Yeah.
Is the other one's name?
Yep. And
so Ruben works over at Ganassi or did work at Ganassi?
He does, yes.
And then Furman works...
He works for a smaller arcade team. It's kind of like a family-run deal, kind of like.
But you guys all came from the same community, right?
Yes. And ironically, Ruben is my cousin, and Furman is my buddy that rode with me when I came down looking for the job.
That's amazing.
In the first place. So they kind of over the years, kind of after I moved down, I think Ruben moved down like a year and a half after I did, and then Furman was less than a year after that. So
you were the one that kind of, okay, this can work, type thing, and you're like, hey, come on down.
And it's all working out. Like Ruben is over at Ganassi in the fab shop, and that fits right with his deal. Like growing up, his dad had a cabinet shop, like made kitchen cabinets, and that's basically the same. He was basically the same, brought up the same way I was as far as hard work. Like you get up in the morning, go do your chores, and then you go to work. And he is really good with building stuff, so it wood, aluminum, metal, it's same thing. It's building stuff, so he's over there, and he went on the road I think 8 times or something this year, 8 or 9 times towards the end of the year, and was planning on they were going to have him on the road full time next year, but now with the NASCAR roster kind of mixes things up, so he's still not 100% sure how that's all going to play out. He's got a lot of people pulling for him,
rooting for him,
trying, like Matt McCall, crew chief on the one car. Him and Ruben are actually really good friends.
Yeah.
Not a bad guy to have your back.
No.
Yeah.
He's like a 50-degree black belt and everything, I think. Tear you up pretty good.
Whoop some ass.
Yeah.
Late model race winner.
Yeah, there's not too many people picking fights with the one car in the garage. Let's just say that.
Yeah. So he's successful over there, winning races. Obviously, Larson is a contender pretty much week in and week out.
Oh, yeah.
And no, it's just good. Like, I've had multiple phone calls during this off season for people looking. People want me to come work for them.
Yeah.
And some really good opportunities. And
it's a great spot to be in, by the way.
Yeah. And to be honest, like I got get a phone call from Chad Knaus. I guess it's been 2.5 months ago now, 2 months ago. And I had multiple interviews, and it just didn't work out. In the end, they hired some guy that had cup experience. So, but I was this close, you know? I was that close. And I actually built a really good relationship with him. And
that's something that's going to live with you forever. That's eventually going to pay off big. So,
like, I built a really good relationship with him, the new car chief, Jesse, to where I can text them, they text me. Like I really thought I had that gig. I really did for a little while. But it didn't work out. But you know what? Gonna try to win this ARCA championship this year. We're running a full ARCA schedule, and then we'll see what the next off season brings. You know, if like the last time I talked to Chad, he said to keep in touch with him and the crew guys. You know, if I'm at the racetrack when they are, to come
say hi.
Chat.
Yep, be around, say hi.
So
that's a good sign.
Yeah.
So for and from what I hear, like to be able to work for Chad is not easy. Like I hear he's one of the hardest guys to work for, and I think that is one thing that really drives me to want to work there, because I guess I'm just that type of a person. I want to work for the hardest guy or the hardest, you know, I want to work as, you know, I want to find my limit, you know, that's like, I want to find the pinnacle of what it's all about, you know, and
I see where that natural attraction is coming from.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize this. Oh, I want to be the best. I want to work for the best. Well, like, that's not necessarily like a pleasant thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, no one gets to the top without.
And that's not necessarily something that you're just going to go out and try to do.
No.
It's more like
it's something
your story. Earn. If you keep your nose down, you keep working, they'll find you.
Yeah.
They will find you.
Yeah, that's kind of what, you know, what happened with the Chad deal. You know, I kind of got the ball rolling a little bit, and kind of talked to the right people, I guess, and kind of sparked some curiosity. And then, of course, I mean, I damn near stood on my head when my phone rang, and I answered. I said, "Hello," you know, and asked who is this, and he says, "This is Chad Knaus." I mean, you know, from, you know,
hello, you still there?
for you know, and I know people. You know, I've got some friends that have been trying to work for Chad for 5 years, and they've been in the sport for 10 or 15, and like, it's just really, really hard to be in that position, you know. So to even be close to being to have built that relationship with them guys is, you know, blows my mind. But you know, when my phone rang and he says who it is, you know, I you know, about stood on my head, you know, just
who
never
is this fucking with me. No, really, who is this?
That was my first instant thought. But then I recognized the voice.
Yeah.
For you know, for some reason, I mean, obviously, I've at that point I'd never talked to him face to face, but hearing his voice on TV,
he's definitely on TV enough to be a familiar voice.
Yeah, like at first I thought somebody's messing with me, and then I recognized the voice. I'm like, okay, this is real, and like, just blows my mind to be in this position, you know, in this short amount of time, and by no means was it easy, or by no means did I do it by myself. Like, I had teammates, you know, each year, and the crew chiefs, everybody I've worked for had the same goal, and that made it easier for me. Like it takes the whole team pulling in the same direction to be successful in anything.
So, is that the end goal for you? Is it to be a Cup crew chief?
Yes. However, and I know it's not too late to go back to school, to what a lot the direction it's going now, you have to a lot of the younger crew chiefs coming in have engineering degree. So for me to be able to do that, to have a better shot at that, I'd have to go back to school, and I wouldn't, or go to school rather. As of right now, I have an 8th grade education. Like that's all the education we get in Amish is from 1st through 8th.
You do not strike me as a person who has only an 8th grade education.
He paid attention.
Yeah.
That's it. I did when I first, in like the first 2 years that I left the Amish, I wanted to learn about cars so I could work on my own cars, because I didn't want to pay somebody to work on my car when I was intrigued to do it. And like I'd pull transmissions, work on, whether it was changing wheel bearings or shocks, springs, working on my own stuff. But anyways, in that like 2nd or 3rd year after I left the Amish, I did an online school thing for auto repair technician. But it was, that was easy. Like that wasn't even a challenge, So, but I guess I'm just more mechanically inclined that way, so it came easy to me. Even though growing up, didn't work on cars or wasn't around cars. But yeah, so 8th grade education, and so like I don't even have a high school diploma or a GED. I should probably go get a GED just to have it. And I was gonna do that at one point in time, but life kind of kept moving, and I moved down here, and from the very beginning, I had planned on having a job that didn't need a GED. Like I wasn't gonna do that. Like I just didn't think that I ever needed it, so I never pursued it. But I guess it wouldn't be a bad thing to have in a plaque, on the wall or whatever. Yeah. But I just haven't never needed it.
Something that we kind of take for granted.
Yeah.
Just having that.
I feel very underappreciative of everything now.
So was it like a schoolhouse, or was it the actual community school?
Yeah. Like the community I grew up, there was, I guess, probably 60 families. So we had 2 schoolhouses at the time. I think that community has at least doubled in the last 10 years since I left. But we had 2 schoolhouses, and they were, I think there was, I want to say, probably at most, there was 25 desks. So 25 kids at most. And, there was, at absolute top, there was 6 kids in the same grade. So there was one school teacher. She taught all 8 grades. And that was just a normal,
Wow.
And really, 8th grade was pretty simple. It was almost a redo of 7th. But the biggest thing that we learned going to school, in the first couple of years, was English. Because
you spoke German?
Their first language is German, and that's what they teach you. So we didn't know how to speak English or read or write English until we went to school and through first, second, and third grade.
You still remember how to speak German?
Yeah. I'm losing some of the bigger words. Some, you know, sometimes I have
to. Okay, what's considered a big German word? A big German word in German. A big. Sorry. Well, what's considered a big German word? Because they're all like 20 letters long.
I don't even know. Like there's just some random. You know, every once in a while. And I don't even use German anymore. Like the only time I use it now is
when you're mad.
Do you cuss the crew chiefs in German when things aren't working?
No.
I mean, that's a good way to get your point across. I mean, they're not going to understand you, but they're going to know that you're really mad. Yeah.
So yeah, like the only time I use German now is the one time a year I go back to Wisconsin, which is usually around Christmas on Christmas break or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I go back to Wisconsin once a year to see all my friends and stuff, and and then I stop in and I see my parents for at most 5 hours, and that's the only time that I'll see them for another year, and I don't even think about it like I talk to a lot of people now. Like I have really good friends that don't go a day without calling their mom or talking to their family or something. Like I don't, and I wish I would have more of that, just because of that family, that family connection. I wish I would have more of that, but that's impossible with being in this situation with them. They won't communicate with me like that. So,
do you talk to any of your siblings, or have any of your siblings left?
No, I had one of my sisters left for probably 6 months. Left the Amish for about 6 months, and she didn't like it.
It wasn't for her.
Yeah, so she went back, and she's married and has kids now, and so yeah, no, I don't talk to them. Like I'll get a letter from my mom. Maybe I'll get 4 letters a year from my mom, and I get a couple from my sisters. And that's how I know how many nieces and nephews I have. Like, and I think the oldest nephew is 5 or 6 now, and like I know his name, but I have, I think, 6 nieces and nephews now, and I don't know any of their names besides the oldest one, just because I never see them, and but so I wish I would have a little bit more family connection like that. Just, I don't know. It's just different now. Like I have a girlfriend, so like when she calls her mom or something, and I'm like, just figure it out on your own. But she just it's just easy. Call your mom. Where I could never do that. So having that family thing, is I wish I could do that, but besides that, it's,
What'd they say when you told them that you won the championship?
They absolutely don't grasp it. They have no clue.
Wow.
Like when I was in Wisconsin over the winter here, I was there for 6 days, and of total, I was at my parents' house 4 hours, and that is, and all my brothers and sisters and my nieces and nephews were there, and that's all I've seen of my family. That's all I've seen of them.
Would you say that like that family element's the only thing really missing from your life?
Yeah, and and it's not, you know, it's just different because, like, I want to have kids at some point in life. So, like, I feel like having that connection, like if I was to have a son, like having that connection with him, like it would just be so different, you know, because like that would be another thing now that, I mean, obviously having kids is a big step in life, but you know, not having that experience with my family, like I can't call my dad or my mom and you know, ask them, you know, think about the most random question, you know, so building that relationship with my own kids, like I think would be a little different. Mm-hmm. But I mean, if that point comes, you know, I'll take it in stride and see what happens. But but you know, besides that, I think that you know, I'm pretty excited and happy with how life is going.
That's definitely the vibe I get. Like, you don't really seem like somebody. I don't know, how do I describe this? Number one, obviously you're really good at what you do, and like you're bright, intelligent, and you can hold conversations. So I would have never guessed you only had like an 8th grade education, but you don't really seem or come off as somebody that's like you just seem very well recovered from the fact that you came from essentially like a different universe. And to me, you just strike me as like a completely normal person who would have had a similar upbringing to like mine or Zach's. Mm-hmm. So it's very interesting seeing that dynamic and seeing like how well you've been able to adapt and overcome things, and like not only do that, but like start progressing and like, you know, getting phone calls from chat canals and stuff. I just find that very, very interesting.
Yeah, I think since day one, like from when I left the Amish, I basically had to, if some, you know, like that, when something happens, something bad happens in life now, or something like have a bad race, like maybe you're leading the race and something happens, you get wrecked or whatever, like that, I guess part of me leaving the Amish and kind of how life has progressed, like I have to forget about it, like, and move on. So like, and I think that's what helps me as a person when it comes to my job, when it comes to racing, whether it's in the shop, whether it's, you know, maybe me and the crew chief had a disagreement, or whether it was maybe we were leading the race and got wrecked on the last lap. Like, that will make anybody mad. But I think that's what helped me, like, okay, that happened. It's time to forget about it.
Water under the bridge.
Like, on Monday, we are going to work harder to make the car better because the car should have been faster, so that guy would have never got to us. You know, that's kind of what, like there's, yeah, bad stuff happens, but there's a reason, you know? So if there's something we can do to work harder to make it better, then that's what it is, and forget about it. Forget about what happened, you know? It's like you said, water under the bridge.
Yeah, and not only that, like, that's a big thing in the pit crew guy community is we all have to have short-term memory.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got like 20 laps to forget about, you know, blowing a stop.
You don't even have that. You have from the right side of the car to the left side of the car, because you can't bring what happened on the right side of the car to the left side of the car and have it affect you.
Right.
So, like, you just got to know that, like, if you messed up, you messed up. There's no Hail Mary pass. There's no fixing it. It's just like, fucked up. And then you got to keep going. And then, you know, crew chief or whoever is going to scream at you, but you just kind of got to look at them and say, hey, there's nothing worse that you're going to tell me that I've already told myself. So it's like,
get it out. Let's get
like,
on to the next one.
I got it. You know, it's like, it ain't going to happen again.
Yeah. And you bring in a point there that I see a lot, like as far as like on a mechanic side of things, and me working with my crew guys, like as being a car chief, like when a crew chief wants something done, like I gotta have my guys, getting with it.
Mm-hmm.
So, but anyways, I see a lot of people, like you said, when you make a mistake, it spins them out. Like it could have been something simple, and they make a mistake. Well, now they're trying to go faster to make up for it. You can't. You can't make up for it. That mistake is done. So clear your mind. That it's done. So whether it's changing something as simple as front shocks, and you have a couple minutes left in practice, and a crew chief wants to change front shocks, rear shocks, sway bar, right front spring, and you have a few minutes left in practice. So what happens when you take a nut, off, or a bolt, and you drop it? You drop it on the car, you drop your wrench. Okay, so now when you try to hurry, say you drop a nut and you grab, you pick it up and you try to go faster, so you're trying to make up time,
cross-thread it,
and you cross-thread it or you drop it again.
Yeah.
So
or you're not getting it as tight.
Yeah.
Or
right. So, and I see that a lot with a lot of people, and I guess I just kind of pay attention, I guess, and watch people. So whether somebody, or the guys pitted next to us are doing that, and you see them make that mistake, okay, stop. Gather your mind, clear your brain, and just dig on. Instead of making it worse. I don't know. I guess that's just a theory I have.
It's a good one.
I think it's a pretty sound theory.
Yeah, it's
right. I mean, you're never going to get those seconds back, but you can minimize the damage, right? Like you can blow a test. For me, like in school, you can blow a test and get yourself in a hole, and just realize that, man, the only person who fucked up that test is me. Mm-hmm. I can't go back and redo that test, but what I can do is figure out, to your point, what did I do wrong? How did I not prepare well enough? Mm-hmm. And how can I go get the A that I'm seeking? It's not whining until you get the next try. It's, fuck. Okay, back to work.
Yeah.
Just let it go.
Yeah, you can't dwell
and then
on
get
it.
back at it.
Even the race car drivers, if they mess up coming off of 4, they can't go faster into 1.
Right. You've already lost all that speed.
Because then you're really going to mess up. Like it's
overdrive it.
Yeah, it's done. It's gone. It's over.
Everybody else.
You just can't let it bother you. And with me, like I let that extend even further. Like I've been a part of many of Black Mondays, moving around from team to team, and when something like that happens, like I just like, okay, well, there's going to be another job. Like that's the way that I always look at it. I don't think like, fuck, what am I going to do? It's like, okay, where's the next job? What's, who's looking? I'm always looking for the next thing. Where can I be? Where can I go? Who can I call? It's always that next thing. It's not like, God, I just, oh no, what, like,
and
now
it's
what?
Moments like that is why it's important to get along with the people you can get along with. Find people who you respect and who can serve you well, and then serve them very well. Because it's going to be your network. It's going to be your friends. It's going to be people who you've done right, who ultimately bail you out of those situations. Like every time, it's going to be somebody. Oh, you know what? He came through and made something happen that nobody else could, and it seemed small to him, but it was huge to us. He's available. Okay, well, hey, somebody needs to hire this guy.
Yeah.
So before we get off here, there's a couple Amish rumors, because I come from Southern Indiana, and there's a town called Montgomery, and Montgomery has a big Amish community in it. And my dad actually, like, I don't know if he kind of like romanticized the Amish community a lot. Like we had Belgians, we had all the horse-drawn stuff, we had 40 acres of land. At a point before my parents got divorced, like he was wanting to get like a windmill. Like he wanted to be in the ability to be off the grid. You know, like we had a tractor and we had a combine and all that stuff, but he really enjoyed, he loved horses, loved working with the horses, loved the whole horse-drawn plows, planters, harvesters, that whole deal. But we always used to make trips over to the Amish community because that's where he would get the harness pieces, the yokes and all that stuff that was already made. But there was always one, some of the buggies that they had, like some of them were actually like a Suburban of the buggy, and there'd be like a stack coming out of the top of it, and there'd be like a wood burner inside the buggy. Because you can't turn on the defrost.
Is that the Cadillac of the of the buggies?
I guess. But there was always the rumor that if a Amishman had one too many, that he could just sit back and relax, and Old Faithful behind the wheel there knew the way home and could get him home if he was asleep or tired or whatever.
Yeah, that is very true. The horse will, if if you have a horse, and you had that horse for a good period of time, and 9 times out of 10 that horse knows where home is. So if the horse was to get loose, if it was 5 miles away, if he was to get loose, he'll run home. And there's definitely truth to that.
There's humans not capable of that. Nowadays, it's just like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then I did know that you can get in trouble for that if a cop was to see you passed out and the horse is just walking down the road. That you could...
Yeah, that probably wouldn't be good.
What was your first alcoholic beverage and when?
My first alcoholic beverage was when I was 15 or 16. I was still Amish. I had my buddy bring me some Coors Light. And
at the Rockies.
In Wisconsin, nonetheless.
That's awesome, yeah.
And, of course, to get a hold of him, and he was the only guy I knew outside the Amish, that I really knew. Mm-hmm. To get a hold of him, of course, I didn't have a phone. So I had to sneak out of the house, and I wasn't allowed to go to the neighbors to use the phone. But so I'd have to sneak out of the house and run across the street. And our neighbor had 18-wheelers, so he had a big ass shop and had an office in the one end. So it had a phone, computer, and that stuff. And so whenever my dad needed to use the phone for the business, he would go over there and borrow the phone. And so if I wanted to make a phone call, I had to sneak over there and use the phone. But so I would call my buddy, and if I needed something, he'd bring me some beer, and he'd pull in through the field that wasn't in sight from the house, and put it by a certain fence post back there. So
make the drop.
So on the Sunday afternoons that I went for my walk, then I would go pick up whatever was dropped.
It's kind of like when you're going on a walk with your cousins during Thanksgiving.
So, so that kind of brings me back to the other one that I was going to ask. They can have all that stuff. I say they have.
What do you mean they?
They can have technology and stuff like that if it's gifted, right?
No.
No. So if I gave you a chainsaw, you could use the chainsaw.
That depends if they're allowed to have chainsaws. Where I grew up, we could have chainsaws. But then there is some communities where chainsaws aren't allowed. So in that case, they wouldn't even be able to use it. If somebody's seen you using a chainsaw, then you'd be in trouble.
When you were just listening to NASCAR on the radio, did you develop a favorite driver?
Not at that point. Not really, because I really didn't understand it that well. So I didn't really develop a favorite driver until after I was watching it on TV, to where you could actually see it.
I think you're supposed to say the 48.
Yeah, it may or may not have been
Rooted hard for the 48.
But yeah, it was wasn't until after I got to see it on TV when I was better, obviously visualize it then, because before I was just imagining how.
Yeah, you were just hearing names and numbers and.
Yeah.
It is like there's people that will turn off the TV broadcast and turn on like the MRN or PRN feed.
Yeah,
and listen to that.
Yeah, I used to do that with football games.
Yeah, I mean, listening, it's just like reading. You paint your own picture, or you get excited off of somebody else describing something in an excited manner. Like,
right.
There's so many ways you can paint people passing or spinning or going through the corner that when you see it, it's just kind of like, okay. But like when you hear like somebody talking, and it's just like,
and the MRN guys, PRN guys, they do a phenomenal job.
Oh, they're fantastic.
Yeah.
How they're able to hand it off to each other and just seamlessly know that because all that's live. There is no going back and tightening it up and filling in the gaps. So the second this guy stops talking, and they just kind of know with their own
trouble in turn 4
cadence. And then they're running down the backstretch, and then as soon as he says, and they're running down the backstretch, the next guy
picks them up, boom,
bam, and they're 3 wide heading into 3 and 4, and they boom, 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 boom. But those guys have been working together forever.
Yeah.
But there's that excitement that they have to. That's that drama that they have to basically make because you can't see that it's exciting,
right?
So you have to hear that it's exciting. That's why I wish the TV guys were that excited about it, because like there was a couple years ago when it was Gordon and Edwards, I think it was at Phoenix. It was one of the closest finishes that we'd ever had, and it was right after the weekend of when Truex and Denny had that really close finish at Daytona. That one was like crazy, but when they went to Phoenix, like the guys are just talking and like, oh, and he almost got him.
Yeah.
Like, no, like you need to be like, when you're listening to Supercross or you're listening to the X Games, those guys are excited, pumped, jacked up on Monster and everything else.
Yeah, like how much free Monster do you have? And you cannot be monotone.
Exactly. Okay, the series is sponsored by Monster. Give those guys up in the booth a couple Monsters and let's get some excitement. Let's get some
TV ratings would go through the roof.
Yes, let's draw it. We're not watching golf.
No.
Yeah.
Like we're basically watching MMA fighting, and when you listen to those guys, I mean, they're like that's what we need. We need to hear that.
Yeah.
We need to hear and they get my. That's what's missing.
That's what made the sport excitement.
Yeah.
You got to define that excitement.
Yeah. And there's a fight. Like that's the whole thing.
Yep. That's exactly right.
All right, man. I appreciate you coming on. Thank you for doing this. Such short notice.
Yeah.
And through the braved elements, but I know you're laughing at this compared to Wisconsin. You're just sitting back and laughing at everybody else, aren't you?
Yeah, the past 2 days now, 3 days. It's been it's hilarious. Like obviously coming from Wisconsin, driving through it is I mean, you drive through it 6 months out of the year, basically. Yeah. So, it's, I get a good,
we got
good laugh.
6 3/4 inches right here at the house.
No kidding.
And it might as well be 6 feet.
Yeah, but I think Raleigh got a foot. Winston, Greensboro got like 8 to 10 inches.
It just seems like a lot. This is the most it's snowed since I've lived down here, though, for sure. It was the earliest that it had snowed in the winter. In November, it snowed.
Yeah.
And then it's been snowing a lot. This is a lot of snow.
Yeah, it's bad enough that they don't have the equipment to deal with it because obviously it snows at most one time a year.
Yeah.
So they don't have the equipment to deal with it. And then on top of that, people don't know how to drive in it.
Yeah, hell, half of them were on their roof upside down. the actual scraper trucks. It's like, come on, guys. You're the few, the proud. Like we need you.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Maybe that's what I should do. Maybe I should go talk to the state or to the county, and anytime it snows, I'll go drive a plow truck at night.
Yeah.
So pull double duty with work or something.
Yeah, I've seen a couple guys running around with plows and stuff. I'm thinking they're making a lot of money. They're making
You think we could put a plow on like a horse and carriage?
There is a few of them where they hook up a team of Belgians to like a wagon looking thing, and and it's got a snowplow on it.
You could definitely sell that idea down in South Charlotte. Like, we're going to organically feed these horses and hand plow your driveway.
Yeah.
No carbon footprint.
No, they would complain about the farts.
Yeah.
Cow farts. It's causing global warming.
By the way, it's $3,000. We're going to donate half of it to my personal charity, which is called my mortgage.
And her name's Mary. All right, bud. Yeah. Thank you for coming out.
Thanks for hanging. Thanks for sharing your story.
I appreciate you guys having me on, and hopefully, I don't mind. I enjoy sharing the story because I want to intrigue people. Like, it doesn't matter where you come from, what your background is, and what you want to do. Like, it is possible. Like, no matter what you want to do. I mean, you can, if you really, really want to, you have, and a lot of people go back to bad luck excuses. Well, first off, you gotta, like I said earlier, you gotta work, to be in that position for good luck, So people a lot of times have some excuse, like when you talk to somebody that has dreams of doing whatever it might be, it's possible. There's going to be detours around, on the way. There's going to be detours and stops, and it's by no means going to be easy, to reach whatever goals that you want to accomplish, but hard work and perseverance,
Mm-hmm. Amen to that. If anyone wants to hear more, how can they reach you on social media?
I am on Facebook, Marlin Yoder.
Mm-hmm.
And or if somebody wants to, you can message me there or email me, marlinyoder90@yahoo.com.
You don't have Twitter or Instagram or anything like that?
Yes, I do have Twitter and Instagram. Marlin Yoder on both.
At Marlin Yoder?
Yes.
Okay. All right, man. Thank you for coming on. Maybe have you back on here in the future when you sign that big 48 deal.
Yeah, it's we'll see. We'll definitely see what the off season brings. I'm definitely not giving up on it. So I mean, I've committed to my crew chief and my team to run this season.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So gonna do that first, and pretty much, just keep my head down and dig and see what opportunities come next.
Well, good luck. Go win you a championship. Have fun, and thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
You can find me at JackmanZach on Twitter and Instagram.
You can find me at Tall Guy Turbo on Twitter and Instagram.
And for Marlin Yoder and Young and Pruitt Podcast, thanks you guys for listening. See ya.
Thanks. See ya.